Winter is here in Tasmania. The autumn has been quite mild, but now winter has truly arrived at the end of June. The Tasmanian winter, while it is cool, it is not severe, and it really only lasts a couple of months. It's mostly characterised by rain, cloud, wind. Frosts are not that common. Because of the amount of rain and cloud, we don't get so many frosts, but when they do come, they can be fairly severe. Snow, we have had in the last couple of years some snowfalls here where we live, but they haven't remained on the ground for any length of time. Back in the mountains, further inland, yes, there is snow already. It's been falling the last couple of days. A few days ago, someone asked me, what are you planting in your garden right now? And the short answer, of course, is nothing. But that doesn't mean that there isn't things growing and there aren't jobs to be done in the garden. So I thought I'd take you on a short tour of the veggie patch and show you what's happening right now. A lot of what happens this time of the year is preparation for spring. So let's go on a little tour. Coming through the raised garden beds here, you'll see there is Russian kale growing still. This was planted in the springtime. It is still producing kale that we're eating, and it will continue to grow until spring, at which point it would start to go to seed if I left it. This one I have some snow peas. These I don't usually plant this early, but this was a little bit experimental. I normally would plant them in August. And you'll see that there's quite a mix germinating here of salad plants. There's winter lettuce and rocket coming up. This is all self-sown from seed that's fallen. I simply spread a layer of compost over the soil. This bed has broccoli grown in it that was planted back in May. It would have been better planted probably a month earlier. It would have been more advanced now. Broccoli grows fairly slow over winter here. Also at the back is some spinach. It grows quite happily over winter here. This bed behind has some remnants from last year, silver beet, which is still basically being fed to the chooks. Some remnants of beetroot and parsnips at the back, which are now being dug and eaten. There's still a few carrots to pull, but coming to the end now. Didn't really perhaps plant enough to get through winter. I needed to plant more carrots at the end of summer, but didn't get to that job. Now this bed I'm experimenting with putting a weed mat cover over to suppress the weed growth. It basically is being prepped for spring planting, and I'm trying this as a useful way of keeping the weed growth down when the bed is not in use. This patch of ground, which grew tomatoes over the summer, I have seeded with mustard, and this is a way to grow some green manure but also to sterilise the ground. Because I grow both potatoes and tomatoes, 2 crops of potatoes in the year, the ground is fairly intensively cultivated with the same type of plant. So mustard helps reduce the virus content in the soil. This will be dug in probably in a couple of months' time. One little tip here, if you're looking for mustard seed to plant in your garden as a green manure and a fumigator for the soil, buying it from seed houses can be quite expensive, but there's one simple and easily accessible source, and that's the spice rack of your supermarket or grocer. I paid, I think, less than $3 for 150 grams of seed, and that planted this whole patch behind me. This section again we have mustard planted. There is the garlic that I planted in April. It is now pretty much all come through. Still some of the jumbo garlic hasn't come, but all the true garlic is well and truly up. Now beside it is a patch that doesn't look that nice. Basically, I have prepared the soil here, covered it with black plastic. The Rio, which is my tomato growing frames, has been put on to keep the plastic down in the wind. I will plant broad beans into this somewhere July, August, when weather permits. Covering it up like this means that I'm not going to be planting in mud. The soil will be ready and still acceptable in terms of moisture to work with. If I didn't prepare it and cover it like this, coming along in August I would basically have mud and wouldn't be able to cultivate it or plant the seeds very easily. This bed may look like a heap of weeds. What it contains is the autumn crop of potatoes, and I'm progressively digging those, as you can see at this end where they have been dug, and I will continue to dig those over winter. They need to all be out by about the middle of August, or else they'll start to grow again. Here in the hothouse you'll see the choco vine, which was thriving in late autumn, has now come to the end with the first of the frosts. Beside it there is the only thing I have planted, which was the experimental straw bale potatoes. Still a remnant of capsicums. They are still doing, still something to pick there anyway. And these fantastic straw bale cherry tomatoes, they were planted in August last year, and they're still flowering and producing fruit. I'm going to leave them as long as I can to see what they will do over winter and how long they will survive. It's interesting to look underneath these tomatoes and see what's happened to the straw bales, and you'll see it's turned into this beautiful compost, and that's what's feeding these tomatoes and keeping them growing for so long and so healthy. The last bed here in the hothouse has lettuce. Now this particular type of lettuce, I don't know what it's called. I've been growing this for most of my life, I think, this lettuce. It was introduced to me as a Chinese lettuce. It's a loose leaf lettuce, and look, I don't save the seed, I simply let some come up and seed in the bed, and then spread the seeds around where I want them to grow, so that they come up themselves. You see a lot of plants coming up here, and that will give us a nice amount of lettuce over winter and into spring. Also in this bed there's chickweed growing. Now a lot of you might consider this a weed, but it actually contains more nutrition than the lettuce that it's growing amongst, so I allow some of this to grow and we use it in our salads. It's really quite tasty in a salad. Aside from the veggie patch, there is still other food coming along from the garden. There's kiwi fruit here which are beginning to ripen. Also we have here tamarillos, which are frost sensitive, hence the extensive covering to keep the frost off, but they grow under that quite well and will produce over winter and into spring over quite a long period of time some really delicious fruit. There's also quite a good crop on this black passion fruit. I'm growing it in a very sheltered corner where it keeps warm, doesn't get much wind, and being right up against a building doesn't generally wouldn't get any frost on it. Last but not least, the lemons are ripening, and there's going to be quite a good crop that will last all of winter, spring and into summer. This lemon is producing successively, still got flowers on it, so we'll have a continuous supply of lemons. So that's a great vitamin C input. So as you can see, there's still things happening over winter in the garden, and over the next couple of months I'll bring you some videos of winter jobs in the garden.